Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you. If you could say the last words, thank you. It's so lovely to have you here. It's lovely to see people that are interested in both science and how do we talk about God at science. So please do come in, close the door behind you. It's okay, come in. Hello. It's great having you here. So today we have amazing Alexander Fink with us. He's going to, yes, you are amazing, sir, who is going to lead this. So I would like to invite you up here. And let me just pray for him. Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing all of us here together. And thank you for Alexander being here. Lord, I want to thank you for the long career in sciences that he has. And thank you that you have created him this way and that you've put him in this place to bless others. So please let us be open-minded and hear his words. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Eva, for your introduction and for hosting this session. First of all, I want to check whether you are in the right seminar here, because someone just approached me whether this is only about the natural sciences or about all sciences, like the social sciences and so on. Well, I'm a physicist with a PhD in biophysics. I cannot tell you anything about the social sciences. So this is about the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. Yeah, so no one is leaving the room. Even more people come in now, so it was a good advertisement, obviously. Yeah, and I have different possibilities in this seminar. I could give you a lecture for about 45 minutes, and then we can have Q&As. But if you have certain questions and you say we would rather have a conversation, we could also have a seminar in a conversational style. I'm open for that. So maybe first I would be interested in what are your questions? Why have you come to the seminar? How to reach those in the sciences? Are you working in the sciences, or are you having friends who are scientists, or do you just come for personal education? What do you expect from this seminar? Just raise your hand and say something.
I have lots of students who study sciences, so it'd be helpful to know kind of how the best way to reach them is. It's a very academic, STEM-heavy uni, so
yeah. Thank you. So you have students with whom you are in contact, and they are in the sciences and have scientific questions and so on. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, approaches to your best friend who is an atheist and studies physics. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So I have a question with some of the reasoning behind, like how to explain science to like basic science to students. The reason I'm here is more to understand more the brain of science for the students and how can we relate that to the last one that we are here.
Okay, so somehow.
What is the reasons kind of like that and that will kind of like how the brains are wired and how can we
So what's the difference between a scientist's brain and a normal brain? Yeah? Okay. To summarize the question. That would be a talk in itself, actually. Every brain is unique, by the way. And they are all wired in a very good way. Thank you. So, okay. So, yeah.
My vote would be on the conversational style for its work. But for me, it would be being in a scientific academic setting as a member of staff. You know, how you were able to reach out to other colleagues, where students ask lots of questions, colleagues generally don't. They settle and they're just doing their job.
Yeah. So you work in the faculty of science and you want to reach out to colleagues. Probably you are in the minority here, unfortunately, but gladly you are in the academics track, so we can maybe focus on that in the academics track as well, because it feels like most of you whom I see here are from, apart from a few exceptions, yes.
Well, I'd like to comment too. I'm always looking for where I can tie into a tie into faith through the physics that I teach. So anytime I can get a new idea, I want to grab it.
New ideas for how to tie in faith into physics teaching.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Well, I come from philosophy, and normally we think about this idea of human being, of a person, and also with friends that are neuroscientists, they tend to reduce everything to material. So nothing more than some chemical reactions.
Yeah.
So I would like.
Reductionism, that's a big issue. Yeah, you're right. Okay, maybe we do it like that I start at least with the lecture, and I have 8 reasons, and all these reasons are actually phrased as questions, because I think these questions can be used by you to ask them towards scientists. And then you will see what kind of arguments might come along in this conversation. But first of all, to reach out to those who are scientists is not very different from other people. They are human beings, they have feelings, they have a personal history. No way. That's the first surprise in the seminar, is it? Yeah, but so befriend them, play games with them, have fun with them, ask good questions, learn about their lives and so on. I think this is really the basic thing. But then, of course, when you talk to people in the sciences, they will be interested in some subjects which you might find very peculiar to some degree. And so maybe it's helpful if we have a few aspects here. Can a scientist believe in God? And there are scientists who can believe in God. And so obviously, yes, they can. And so I will give you actually 8 questions. Then one question that is always asked against it, like, are miracles possible? And then how I would end up an evangelistic talk, but we can leave that away probably today, as most of you believe in Jesus already, I think. So the starting point of all that. And by the way, you can have the presentation if you send me an email. My email address is here, info@iguw.de, Institut für Glaube und Wissenschaft, Institute for Faith and Science in Germany. We belong to SMD, the German IFES movement. Okay, what is the starting point when you talk to a scientist, to a secular scientist? Well, usually we can all agree that science is very successful, and it claims to explain nearly everything, some would even say everything can be explained scientifically, on natural grounds only. Only mechanisms that can be described in purely naturalistic ways. And nature is often seen as a closed, self-contained system. This is an assumption that I happen to meet again and again with secular scientists who don't believe in God. And so, if we agree that science is very successful, and we have even found out that Zeus is not active when there is thunder and lightning, but it's electrons shifting around in the atmosphere and so on. Isn't it logical that nature is all there is? So why ask questions about God? And I would say it could be that nature is all there is. It is possible. It's a possible thought. But let us face the consequences then. And I think this is a first connecting point, highlighting the relevance of thinking deeper. Because if that is true, that nature is all there is, then Jacques Monod, Nobel Prize winner in 1965, in his book Chance and Necessity, is right. When he writes, if he, meaning mankind, if mankind accepts this message in its full significance, message means everything happens by chance and necessity, there are no other factors if nature is a closed system, in its full significance, man must at last wake out of his millenary dream, which is part of the Christian faith and so on, this dream, and discover his total solitude, his fundamental isolation, alone in the universe, in a vast universe. He must realize that, like a gypsy, he lives on the boundary of an alien world, a world that is deaf to his music, and as indifferent to his hopes as it is to his suffering or his crimes. There is no ultimate morality, there is no ultimate hope, there is no comfort in suffering, and there is no real joy, because the music just fades away in the vast space of the universe. Or you could summarize the position of Jacques Monod like this. Where are you? You are lost. There is no hope, no moral, there is nothing. We are just dust in a vast universe. Having this perspective, isn't it worth to think about possible alternatives? You can't lose anything, because if that is true, you come from nothing and you go to nothing. Physicists can even calculate when this will happen, when all of Earth will be vanished by the sun, burning it up and so on. So you can't lose anything. You come from nothing, you go to nothing, you have nothing to lose, of course. So let's ask a few questions. Whether there is an alternative to this hopeless world that naturalism sets in front of us. And the first question you could ask, actually, is a very observational question when you watch TV, for example, or read books. Why do scientists disagree on this issue? Because there are some scientists like this, like Peter Atkins or like Francis Crick. Francis Crick says, the simple fables of the religious of the world have come to seem like tales told to children. He's an atheist, and what the Bible says and religion teaches us is just a fairy tale, a myth, something that has nothing to do with reality. And similar, a lot of other scientists. Francis Crick, famous Nobel Prize winner who is a co-discoverer of the DNA structure. Now let's turn to another Francis, also very famous for his work in genetics, because he was the director of the Human Genome Project and published in June 2000 the sequence of the human genome, 3 billion letters. Francis Collins, and he wrote a book, The Language of God, A Scientist Presents Evidence for Belief, and he says, it is humbling for me and awe-inspiring to realize that we have caught the first glimpse of our own instruction book, previously known only to God. So he connects the discoveries of DNA and genetics with the magnificence of a creator, while Francis Crick, also a magnificent scientist, discovered the structure of the DNA, interprets it as a refutation of the existence of God. Why is it that two Francises, one won the Nobel Prize, the other one might be the next one, we don't know, they think so differently? And even when we look into history of science, we find out that we have different opinions, but a lot of the scientists in the past had no problems to connect science to faith. Copernicus, Galileo Galilei. I mean, he got into trouble with the church, but it was not actually the Bible or belief in God that was his problem, but a certain interpretation of the Bible connected to Aristotelian picture of the world, actually. Johannes Kepler, yeah, he was very keen to thinking God's thoughts after him. Pascal, Boyle, Newton, Faraday, all these big names, a lot of them were Christians or at least believing in a personal God, sometimes maybe kind of a deistic God, but at least there was a personal God. And so why do scientists disagree on that? I think the reason is we have different worldviews, and that's very important to show that the conflict is not between science and faith in God, but the conflict is between different worldviews. Because, and you might have heard that in other talks before today or yesterday, we have on the one hand theism, and on the other hand you have materialism. In theism, mind is primary and matter is secondary. Mind somehow by creation, however that works out in the details. Even Christians disagree on that, but mind creates matter. While in materialism, matter is primary, and by some kind of emergent processes, mind appears on the scene as a late phenomenon. That's why Dawkins says it's very improbable that something like a God exists, because this is such a complex being, it's improbable that this being should come about by purely materialistic processes. But what a concept of God is behind that? Of course, a wrong concept, because he sees God as dependent on matter, because matter is primary in his worldview. So, first point, they disagree, the scientists, because of different worldviews. Science itself cannot really prove or disprove the existence of God. That's very important, and maybe I skip that point because it can be a bit technical. I like this image, actually. If someone says, well, we don't need God, and nature really does not, you show me God in nature. Prove me that God exists by scientific methods. You can always say, that's a good question, but how should I prove the existence of God? What should I measure in nature to prove the existence of God to you? That's a good question, isn't it? What should I measure so that you believe in God? And most scientists would never have thought about that, what should be measured or observed in nature. And you can even use this illustration and say, well, let's assume we have this picture. It's the star sky of Van Gogh. And can you find Van Gogh in his picture? You can do physical examination of the picture and count the number of atoms and the weight. You can do chemical analysis of this picture, but you will find different molecules and elements there, but you will not find Van Gogh. Why? Because Van Gogh is not a part of his own picture. If he were part of his own picture, we might doubt that he actually painted the picture. So it is very logical that the painter is not part of the picture. So if God is the creator of the material universe, should we expect that he is a part of this material universe? I don't believe so. So I think this is a really good illustration to make people think. What do you expect to find out by science regarding the existence of God? Well, like with a picture, you could find traces. Some of these color structures on that picture are very typical for Van Gogh. So experts in arts will see this picture and say, this is typical for Van Gogh. So maybe we can find traces in nature that point to the existence of a personal creator. And I think this is a valid quest of science, to find traces whether something happened by chance and necessity, or whether we find indicators for an intelligent being or something that is more than matter. And we will see whether science actually points to some of these things. So get on board for a journey of plausibility. We cannot prove God and we cannot disprove God. Science can never disprove the existence of anything, because you can always say, I've seen 100 white swans, so all swans must be white. But then you come across Australia and suddenly you see a black swan. So you must always be open for new experimental evidence, new empirical evidence. You never can prove that something does not exist in science. Even though you can have good arguments why something cannot exist, like a perpetuum mobile, but still, we can never be completely sure about that. Science is an open enterprise, which proceeds by falsification, not so much by verification. Okay, second question, we come into the realm of science now. And the first thing that we discover in science is that there are a lot of laws. It's these beautiful equations that we can use to calculate things, how fast a stone falls, how long it takes to fall down, and so on, which you like in your physics lectures in school. And a lot of you find that probably very beautiful, I think. And so we have studied physics and chemistry and so on. Well, some don't, I agree. Why are there rational laws in nature? Mathematics is a rational concept, a rational logical enterprise. And matter itself seems to be something rather stubborn and stupid, without a mind. And the question is, why is it possible to describe material processes by logical laws that would even be true if the universe would not exist at all? Think about, this universe would not exist. Would 1 + 1 still equal 2? Yes. And would the laws of logic be true still? Yes, they would also be true. So mathematics has an existence of its own, as it seems, but fascinatingly, mathematics describes the material universe. Is that by accident, or is there a deeper reason for that? So why are there mathematical laws in nature? That's another good question that you can ask your scientist students. Albert Einstein said, the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. That's the opposite of what Socrates said. Socrates said, I know that I don't know anything. I know nothing. And Einstein says, no, the fascinating thing is, by science we can know so much about nature and about the universe, but we don't know why. Why can we have these equations by which we can predict the development of the universe and by which we can look back to the star sky at the birth of Jesus Christ and find out what the Star of Bethlehem was, for example? Why is it that stupid nature obeys natural laws? And the pioneers that founded this whole enterprise of finding laws in science, they were not surprised to find laws, actually. It was not like they looked at nature and suddenly, whoops, look at that, there is a law, we can describe it by mathematical reason. No, they expected rational law in nature. And why did they expect rational law in nature? because they believed in a rational lawgiver. Johannes Kepler was so obsessed by the idea that arithmetic laws must be behind the movements of the planet that it took him 6 or 7 years to analyze the planetary motion data that he got from other researchers like Tycho Brahe and Prague and so on, to find out his 3 laws of planetary motion, actually. And I hope that you don't take 6 years for your PhD, but you need a big motivation to stay in one problem all the time until you find out what is the ratio of the numbers behind that. And he found it out because he was obsessed with that thought. And why was he obsessed? Because he believed in a rational God, in a rational law-giving God. The agnostic Jew, Eugene Wigner, a friend of Albert Einstein, by the way, he published a paper, The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences, in 1960. And there he writes this: the miracle, note this word, miracle in a scientific paper, the miracle of the appropriateness of the language of mathematics for the formulation of the laws of physics is a wonderful gift which we neither understand nor deserve. We have no fundament, no explanation why mathematics describes matter. We don't have this fundament because we don't believe in a God, of course. If you believe in God, in a rational God who has created nature and who has created human beings with a mind of God, then I think you have a rational reason why we can find mathematics in nature, because God put some of his thoughts into the structure of the universe and he gave us a mind that is able to discover exactly this structure. Just as Johannes Kepler said, I want to think God's thoughts after him. Another question follows very logically. If there are mathematical laws in nature, what do they help us if we can't understand them? So the next question we can ask is, why can we know and understand these laws? Geneticist J.B.S. Haldane, who is, by the way, quoted by C.S. Lewis in his book Miracles, he says this, and now you need to concentrate because this is a complicated quotation, but I'm sure your mind is able to understand it. It seems to me immensely unlikely that mind is a mere byproduct of matter. It's the question, mind and matter. How is the brain and the mind connected? For if my mental processes, my thinking, my thoughts and so on, if these processes are determined wholly by the motions of atom in my brain, so completely a product of physical processes, of atoms playing billiard in my head, and they produce as a byproduct my thoughts. What a miracle. If that is the case, then I have no reason to suppose that my beliefs are actually true. Why should it be true what I think if my thinking is actually a byproduct of atoms playing soccer in my head, or billiard, or whatever you like? They may be sound chemically, they don't break any natural chemical laws, but that does not make them sound logically. Because logic can be can be actualized in different ways in nature. If you have a calculator and the calculator comes up with 1 + 1 is equal to 3, no natural law is broken. The Maxwell's equations are still valid even for that calculator, but the logical structure, of course, of this calculator is wrong. So why is it that we can trust our thinking, actually? And hence I have no reason for supposing my brain to be composed of atoms. And this is so deep a problem, even Charles Darwin had doubts about the ability of our mind to discover truth if it's just the product of blind chance processes in the course of evolution. And this was Darwin's dark mystery, I think it is called. So, if thinking is the product of something else, then I can always say, your atoms make you believe what you believe, and my atoms make me believe what I believe. If I want to change your thoughts, then let's go to a neurosurgeon and change the structure of your brain. But obviously, it does not work that way. But we have the capacity with our brain to discover our own errors, to understand others' thoughts, and change our own thoughts about certain issues. We can be persuaded by good thinking. So, while naturalism has big and deep issues with that. And even philosophers of science and philosophers in epistemology acknowledge this problem as really a hard problem of materialism. Christians can explain why that is the case. Look at this former beacon of the Harvard University when it was founded in the 17th century. They have 3 books on which it is written veritas. Veritas means truth, truth in Latin. And so it's in 3 books, veritas. What are the 3 books? One book is the Bible, God's revelation, the truth about God's character and his person that we cannot find out ourselves. It needs to be revealed to us. Then there's a second book. This is the book of nature, the book about God's works. And we can think God's thoughts after him in his works, in nature. And why can we do this? Because there is this third book. We are created in God's image. We can think his thoughts after him. Because some of his rationality, even though his thoughts are so much higher than our thoughts as the heavens are above the earth, we know from Isaiah 55, I think, we still can follow some of his thoughts and discover amazing structures in the universe. Okay, so I think these 3 questions are already a great way into making people think about why there could be a God and why naturalism falls short of giving a good explanation why science itself works so well. And you might have noticed that you have not had to discuss any controversial issue like evolution, creation, and so on. It's only about how science works and how our mind connects to nature. And these issues are actually philosophical issues that are discussed in university. And then, of course, there are questions about the structure of the universe that we have found out. So the first question of that would be question number 4. Why is there anything at all? And 100 years ago, exactly 100 years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century until about the 20s of the last century, leading scientists like Albert Einstein or Sir Arthur Eddington and so on, they believed that the universe is eternal. There is no beginning to the universe, while the Bible clearly claims, in the beginning, God created. It's the first word of the Bible, in the beginning, Bereshit. So, is there a contradiction? Well, I don't know what Christians thought at that time, but interestingly, in the 20s, evidence amounted that there is a beginning to the universe. And that was the beginning of the Big Bang Theory, and this was not so much a problem for the Christians of those days, but much more to the naturalists, because they believed in an eternal, self-explaining universe. But suddenly, like Arthur Eddington writes, philosophically, the notion of a beginning of the present order of nature is repugnant. I should like to find a genuine loophole. It is disgusting that the universe has a beginning, because then how can I know that the universe is self-contained and self-explaining? Actually, it is not self-explaining then, because everything that has a beginning usually has a cause. If something happens that has not happened before, we ask, why did it happen? We want to know why, we want to know a cause. And this problem is acknowledged by other scientists, like John Gribbin. The biggest problem with the Big Bang Theory of the origin of the universe is philosophical, perhaps even theological. What was there before the Big Bang? And Nobel Prize winner Arno Penzias, a Jew, as far as I know, he wrote, the best data we have concerning the Big Bang are exactly what I would have predicted had I nothing to go on but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and the Bible as a whole. And by that he means, of course, in the beginning there was the Word. And then God said there was light, and there was light. And actually this is one of the first things that happened in the Big Bang, radiation, light, electromagnetic waves, so to say. Well, you can interpret that in different ways, of course, how you understand the creation account, but for him that seems persuading. So for people who believed in a personal God, the Big Bang Theory was not a big problem. Research on the universe went on, and now we come to question number 5. It's not only that the universe has a beginning, and we need to find out why there is a beginning to the universe, it is even that the universe has a specific structure to it. Physicists love to play thought experiments, and sometimes they can even apply them to reality. Well, and some physicists thought, What would happen if we created our own universe? We just have the problem not concentrating enough energy in one point up to now. Who knows? But a lot of ethical problems might follow from that if we were able to create an own universe. But what would happen? And so we play that through with equations and with computers. And we found out, interestingly, that in nearly all universes that we would create with different physical constants, different particle masses of the elementary particles, strengths of the fundamental forces of physics, like gravitational force, electromagnetic force, and then nuclear forces and so on. If we change the parameters a bit, we realize that actually there is no structure to the universe, usually. So that means no molecules, or not enough heavy elements like carbon, oxygen, and so on. And guess what? If there is no carbon and no oxygen, or if there are no planets, no stars, no sun, what does that mean? There is no life. At least no life as we know it. There could be life that is detached from matter, like angels and so on, of course. This is completely independent. There might be completely different life, but it's hard to imagine to have metabolic, genetic life without a material structure. Or the universe would be much too short-lived and would just collapse in a few seconds again. There is no time that anything could develop in this universe. There is no space for life to live. And then, of course, there are lots of examples. I won't go into the details now. You can read that, for example, in John Lennox's book, Has Science Buried God? Or Cosmic Chemistry. Or you can watch movies on that, The Privileged Planet. Or we also have produced a movie, Our Fascinating Universe, where we explain some of the details. Generally, it is like cracking a vault. In order to receive a universe which allows for life as we know it, all numbers must fit. Like with cracking a vault. If one number is wrong, the door will be closed, and it will stay closed. But if you actually have the right combination of numbers, the door will open, and then it might be possible to arrive at a universe. This is a list of parameters that need to be fine-tuned in order to arrive in a universe which allows life. It's not a short list, by the way. And the list usually even gets longer sometimes. So atheists usually would use the anthropic principle and say, wait a minute, we exist, that's a fact. So if we observe the universe, shouldn't we expect that the universe has exactly the properties that it actually has in order to allow for our existence? Yes, of course, because we cannot live in another universe. Logically, this is true. Logically, our existence implies a universe that allows for our existence. Logic. But physically or causally, this is wrong, because we are not the cause of the universe. The universe is not the way it is because we exist, but we exist because the universe is the way it is. So we still need to find a reason, a cause, why the universe is the way it is. And then you can construct a teleological argument from the fine-tuning. So many independent factors are fine-tuned to an astonishing accuracy. That's what we observe. And which is confirmed by the anthropic principle, which is agreed upon by the vast majority of scientists, whether they are atheist or whether they are Christian. And then this suggests the notion of a purpose, the existence of life, because only with that combination life is possible. And third, the notion of a purpose, however, implies the existence of an intentional mind, because purpose is not produced by natural laws. Are there natural laws that can produce a purpose? No. It's only minds that produce purpose. But mind is a part or an indicator of a person. So the fine-tuning argument can be used as an argument for the existence of a personal creator, of someone who can have a purpose and pursue that purpose. So there is a good reason why there is a personal creator. If you want to go through that a little slower maybe than I did it right now, read the book by John Lennox, Has Science Buried God, for example. My question now is, are you filled with information already? Would you rather like to have a Q&A time now? Because we have 6 o'clock and 7 minutes, so we have about 20 minutes to go. Or should I go on with other arguments? I mean, I have another section on why is life based on information, which is an argument for the existence of an information giver, of course. And then I have a chapter on why is life so purposeful, and I have a chapter on why there is consciousness. And then I have a chapter on the miracles. I should go on? Okay. So, by the way, there is a small excursus to the multiverse hypothesis. If you are interested, we can discuss that later. So, another observation that we do in science is, why is it that life is based on information? A sixth question that you can ask. Because the origin of information, as it is taught in informatics, is algorithmically coded information, which means information that is based on a grammar or on an alphabet and a grammar. This kind of information is produced by rational minds. Minds that can create a code and meaning and semantics with the code. Second, if we encounter information, we are intellectually justified to conclude the existence of a rational mind. We are intellectually justified. So if we discover information, we are justified. And now when we look into the heart of life, the nucleus of a cell, we discover that actually all the proteins in the cell on which our life depends, there are tens of thousands of proteins in our body that are necessary for our body to function in a proper way. And these proteins actually are not produced on other planets. They are not produced outside of living cells. They are only produced in living cells. So the big chemical question is, which reactions take place in order to synthesize the proteins? Why does how are these building blocks of life produced? And why are they only produced in the cell? And the amazing discovery in the 1950s was that they are produced because there is a manuscript, a manual, which describes how they must be produced. And this manual can be read by certain proteins that are also part of the cell and that read this manual and then build these machines, these proteins. Isn't that amazing? Just think entering a spaceship, traveling to another planet, and then finding a system that reads information, builds machines based on that kind of information, and then these machines are able to reproduce themselves. What would your first suspicion be? Is that an uninhabited planet? Or do you think this is a planet where we should be suspicious that intelligent beings might be there and we should be careful? And now let's travel back to planet Earth. And we find a system in which information is processed, producing machines, again, that run a greater system that would not run without this information. I think we are justified intellectually to conclude that because there is information, semantic information, even or algorithmically coded information, to conclude that there is an intelligent sender, someone who has programmed the system. Maybe I skipped that in order to come to other things, but you can ask questions about that later. Why is life so purposeful? Francis Crick says, biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they see was not designed, but rather evolved. This is a remarkable statement by someone who is an atheist and believes matter is all there is, because he admits that things out there look as if there is a designer. It is designed. Design implies a designer. But he says, as this impression of design is so overwhelming, we must keep in mind that it is not designed. It just looks like as if. So first, biology exhibits the impression of design. And second, is this impression of design, is only an illusion. That's the argument. But my question would be, why? Who bears the burden of proof? If I get the impression that something is the case, do I have the burden of proof to say, well, this impression really proves that, Or does the one have the burden of proof who says, well, this is just an impression, but it's completely wrong. It's an illusion. This impression is wrong. Your perception is misguided. I think the burden of proof is on the person who actually claims that the first impression, which is justified even by atheists, that this impression is actually an illusion. So what would the argument be? The argument would be, it is an illusion because evolution is a purely natural mechanism. There is no mind behind it. And my immediate question would be, how do you know that? How do you know that behind that natural process, that there is no mind behind it? Are you sure about that? So two questions arise, actually. Does biological evolution refute the existence of God? And second, is evolution a proven fact? The second question is very complicated, and you need to learn and read a lot about that. But the first question is quite easy. So if you have not much time or not much energy to study evolution and creation and so on, why not only dealing with the first question and try to build a bridge for the atheist towards faith? Because you can easily refute that. The logic of A is evolution is a fact, hence atheism is the true worldview. But why could not a creator God use a mechanism, a natural mechanism, in order to create something? Why should evolution refute the existence of a creator? And there we see the correct logic would actually be, if atheism is true, if there is no creator, then there is only one possibility. And this one possibility is evolution, natural processes by chance and necessity. And even the Greek philosophers, Leucippe and Democritus and Epicurus and Lucretius, they arrived at this notion already by purely thinking, what would the world look like if there is no God? Or if the gods are just passive and would not interfere? And they came up with an evolutionary theory, which means variation of material components, atoms floating around in empty space, forming different shapes. That's what Lucretius says, and Democritus and Leucippe. And they combine, and then these shapes and forms that are formed and built, they are stable or they are unstable, and they are able to multiply or they are not able to multiply. So that's selection. Variation of forms and selection of stability and fitness, you could say even. So even the Greeks, by pure thinking, arrived at an evolutionary theory. It was not Charles Darwin who invented evolutionary theory. And the reason is, if you are an atheist, you only have one option. Very biological necessity, there is only one option. If you are believing in a personal God, you have several options. God could directly create things, or he could indirectly create things. And even Christians disagree on how God did it, so I will not go into that. But a very nice illustration whether a mechanism refutes the existence of God is the teapot. Consider water in a kettle, and the water starts to boil because you switched on the stove because you want to drink tea. Why does the water boil? There are two explanations that are both right. You can either take a chemical, physical explanation. There is heat energy generated, and the water reaches a phase transition, and so on. And that's why the boiling point is reached, and the water boils. But you can also say, the water boils because I switched on the stove, because I want to drink tea. Both are right. You can't say one is right and the other one is wrong. Both are right. Bill Gates is not refuted when we understood how a computer works. Discovering a mechanism does not show that there is no author. And then, of course, you can go into all these details about evolution and whether evolution is true and so on. But let's come to an eighth question, which I think is also very helpful and is cutting edge, actually, in the philosophy of mind. The question, why is there consciousness? If everything is just a function of material processes, then consciousness is just a function of our neurons in our brain. We had that thought in the rationality question number 3. Or is it rather true that there is an immaterial soul that can somehow interact with our material brains? We don't know how, but that does not mean that it does not happen. So, the big question is, why are we as human beings conscious experiencers? That means, when you open your eyes, you see suddenly that the walls here are brown. We can even talk about that, and we can say, What color do the walls have? You will all say brown. But whether you see the same brown as I do, we don't know. Maybe what you call brown is a completely different impression than what I call brown. We just are used that how these walls look like, I call brown. That means actually that what I feel, what I think, what I want is only accessible to myself. It is a subjective experience that cannot be measured by science. Science can only measure the correlated currents and magnetic fields in my brain. Science can measure the currents in my brain and the activity of my neurons, but the neurons are not brown when I see brown, and the currents are not brown when I see brown. They just have a certain quantity. But something else is going on in the brain, and correlated with these purely physical processes, there is a personal impression of seeing color, of hearing nice music, of feeling pain, or whatever. And this is called the qualia problem, if you want to read more about this. The qualia problem, or the heart problem of consciousness. Why is there a personal experience? Why are we subjective experiencers? But then usually a frequent counter-argument is, okay, but take away the brain, take it out of your head, and what will happen? There is no consciousness anymore. Well, first of all, I would say, how do you know? Because we don't know what happens with the person whom you have removed the brain. But first of all, I would say, and of course this is a bit a difficult topic because a lot of people have problems with that, there is the phenomenon of near-death experiences, which means that people who actually have no brain activity anymore, or at least no measurable brain activity anymore, we don't know exactly, but there is a limit to the measurability, but we realize zero currents in the brain. And when they wake up out of coma, they have been resuscitated again, not resurrected, but resuscitated. They sometimes report about experiences that they had, sometimes very personal experiences. So this could be an illusion, but it could be a pointer that something goes on beyond the material processes. But an even better logical explanation would be, let's assume this is my cat here watching a television documentary movie on climate change and ice bears. Our cat really loves ice bears. Always when there are ice bears, she would jump and watch the TV show. I don't know why. Maybe she's an ice bear caught in the body of a cat. I don't know. Is the TV program explained by the TV's electrical circuits? Think about that. If you destroy the TV, you can't see the program anymore. But has the program of the TV disappeared? Does it not exist anymore? Oh, still, it does exist, because it's actually conveyed from another sender. The program is still there. And it could be the case that there is still a soul that just cannot interact anymore with my body if I remove my brain. So the program, the TV program, is not part of the TV. It is only transmitted via the TV in a certain physical surrounding, in a certain physical environment. So mental content has mental origin. That is what I would postulate at that point. Okay, so these were 8 questions, and I think I will stop here. I will not go into the details of miracles now. I just summarize so that you just refresh your minds again. So you can ask 8 questions to scientists, at least, and there are more, but I need to stop at some point, of course. First, why do scientists disagree? Because they have different worldviews. It's a worldview issue. It's not an issue science versus faith. Second, why are there natural laws in nature? This is a very good question, which is debated, and there is no reason in naturalism, but Christians have a reason. Third, why can we know these laws with our natural brains and minds? Fourth, why is there anything at all? The universe has a beginning, so what was before the universe? What is the cause of the universe? Fifth, why does the universe fit so well for our existence? Sixth, why is life based on information? And there is no life without information as far as we know. Seventh, why is life so purposeful? Eighth, why is there consciousness? And these are starters for good conversations, I would say, and just undermine naturalistic assumptions and point that it might be a better explanation for our existence and for doing science and for the universe as a whole, that there is a supernatural cause, a personal creator who wanted us to be here. So I will stop here and open up the floors for Q&As, questions, or comments. Yeah.
Could you just do a few thoughts on multiverse?
Okay, on the multiverse.
I know it's a long topic, but maybe just a
Yeah.
few pointers.
Maybe let me show you a great quote by John Polkinghorne, because I think this summarizes the problem in the best way. Yeah. John Polkinghorne says, "Let us recognize these speculations," he means the multiverse hypothesis, "for what they are. They are not physics, but in the strictest sense metaphysics, something beyond natural sciences." Why does he say that? Because we cannot observe these universes. We would even not realize if these multiverses would suddenly disappear if they are there. If the quarks would disappear, we would certainly realize it because we would disappear with them. But the multiverse, yeah, it just doesn't matter for us. There is no purely scientific reason to believe in an ensemble of universes, even though it is possible to think like that. By construction, these other worlds are unknowable by us. We cannot make an experiment to find out about them. A possible explanation of equal intellectual respectability, and to my mind, greater economy and elegance. Economy means Occam's razor, like we should not postulate more entities to explain something beyond what is necessary. And more greater elegance, according to John Polkinghorne, would be that this one world, which we can observe, is the way it is because it is the creation of the will of a creator who purposes that it should be so. Having said that, I've written an article for UCCF 2 weeks ago. They will publish it at the UCCF website somehow because they have a science project where I go into more detail about that, because the multiverse actually is a fourfold thing with many different meanings actually. But generally what you always can say, even if the multiverse would exist, if we had evidence, it would not refute the existence of God. Because it's just another natural mechanism. And why should God not create more universes than just one? In the beginning, Bereshit bara Elohim hashamayim. This is plural. He created the heavens, the skies. It could be that there are more universes. We don't know that. Just by salvation history, they are not relevant to us. But as I said, there is no scientific evidence for that. So another point is, even if there are other universes, this does not explain away the fine-tuning of the universe. Because if you want to receive a fine-tuned universe, you still need a fine-tuned mechanism that produces finely tuned universes. A really great book about that is The Fortunate Universe by Luke Barnes, a Christian, and Gerard Lewis, a non-Christian. Both are persuaded about the fine-tuning. They discuss all the details, they give you a lot of number examples, and they use great illustrations. And then they have a final, very large chapter, what does follow from that? And Gerard Lewis claims it's a good evidence for the multiverse, and Luke Barnes says it's a good reason for believing in a creator. The G-word, it is called, the G-word, because scientists don't like God, but the G-word. Yeah. Okay, but be creative. You can talk about the G word as long as people are made to think about their presuppositions, I think. Yeah.
What would your advice be on, I've given a lot of scientific talks, and the question of evolution comes up, which I'm happy answering, but often the Christians end up being quite divided within the university.
Yeah.
Depending on their upbringing, maybe how fundamentally they've been brought up on these questions, whether they're six-day Christians. So I can see in their eyes, they're wanting me to make a statement about it.
Yeah, I know this. It really depends on what you personally believe, and if you have a strong inclination to one of the theories, I mean, basically there is young Earth creationism, old Earth creationism, which is skeptical of evolution but accepts the geological timescale and the cosmological timescale, and there's theistic evolution. These are the three basic theories that are held by Christians. And if you want to make a stand for your position, you can say, I'm a Christian and I believe this and this happened for that and that reason. If you say, I don't want to go into secondary issues, which usually I try to avoid, then I would say, I have friends in these three camps, and I would say they all have good reasons for their positions, theologically or scientifically or both, and so on. But actually, this is not the main question. I'm very interested in that question, and there are a lot of open questions in that, but I'm actually more interested in, is there a creator or is there no creator? And all of these three camps agree in the point that there is a creator who is the Father of Jesus Christ, who created the world by Jesus Christ. And the secondary question is, how did God create this universe? And I look forward to the point when I go to heaven, and the first thing I will ask from Jesus is, can we go to your 4-dimensional cinema and watch the movie about the creation of the earth? Because I'm sure God has created a movie like that, and then we can see how it really happened. And when I say that, then people would laugh, and the tension that is usually there, like, are you a young earth creationist there? Are you really dogmatically sound? Or are you scientifically sound, and are you a theistic evolutionist, or are you in both ways deprived by being an old earth creationist or whatever, is taken out. Because I admit that there are questions that can be left open scientifically and maybe even theologically. And there are primary questions and secondary questions, and I don't want to go into that debate and divide the Christians. I want to unify everyone by thinking about, is there a good reason for the existence of God? So use humor. Yeah.
So, this is all really helpful, thank you. I can see how all of those questions would help someone to think about the existence of a God. But do you think arguing from like logical science, there's good reasons why we could say that the God that we're talking about is the Christian God as opposed to other gods? Or do you think we need to include like kind of what the Bible says in the story of Jesus a bit more to do that? Does that make sense?
That's a very good question, and actually this talk is somehow designed so that that question would be brought up. Because, of course, if I want to get to know my wife, or if you want to get to know your husband, you can, of course, use scientific measurement if you want to. You can find out about the tallness and the weight and so on, but that's maybe not the thing that is most interesting to you. So I would start like that and say, you know, science or a picture can give us evidence for a painter, but the picture cannot tell us who that painter is. We need to find out by other sources. And generally, as human beings, when we want to know who God is, we are like blind people touching something, and someone says it's a tree, it's a rope or something. You know, this elephant example, and people will say, yeah, that's the way it is, and all think they are right. But how can we know what is the case? We can only know that if either the elephant starts to trumpet and say, hello, I'm an elephant, or if there is someone who has seen the elephant and reveals it to us, like Jesus. And so the question is, if there is a God, has he revealed himself to us in a personal way? Has he communicated to us? Well, if I take the evidence seriously, God has taken a lot of effort in order to create us as human beings, as communicative human beings, as communicative beings. And so why should he not communicate with us if he took all that effort? So I think it's very logical that God has communicated with us. But how did he do that? And then I would say, my approach is, the best way how God can communicate is becoming a human being like us, because this is the most holistic way. And Christian faith claims that this is the case. Why does Christian faith claim that? Not because Christians thought about that, but because they observed someone to claim this, like Jesus Christ claimed it in several ways, like, I'm the way, the life, and the truth. If you encounter a student in university coming up to you and saying, by the way, I'm the way, the life, and the truth, you would think, like, this guy must be mad. Was Jesus mad? Well, all we know about him, he was not mad. Or this guy is bad and wants to deceive you and get some money from you or whatever. Was Jesus bad? No, he laid down his life. So this is the trilemma by C.S. Lewis. Someone who claims to be God is either mad, bad, or God. And you only get out of this trilemma if you assume that the sources are corrupted. And then you get into the question of the reliability of the New Testament sources and so on, which you can learn about in other books and other seminars, I think. But but actually be prepared to answer these questions. Yeah. And so it's a very good question, and the solution is God has communicated, which is not measurable in scientific terms. Yeah.
Just some advice.
Would you like to have the microphone?
No, I can start.
Okay.
Just another advice question. So the other experience I have, and I think a lot of staff would experienced this, is that, like you said earlier, most scientists are just normal people that have normal needs and normal passions, and you want to engage on that level. But then there'll always be one person in the scientific lunch bar who wants to go really technical and really detailed and kind of diverge the conversation and come. What's your advice then on how you make sure that doesn't kind of steal the voice that you're trying to give to the gospel to those people that are genuinely maybe searching for the meaning of life?
Well, I would look into the eyes of the audience and see how people react to that question. And if I see, wow, they are now really interested, then I would really answer that question. But if I see that people turn around and think like, what does he ask about and so on, I would say, this is a really great question. And as a physicist and scientist, I'm also interested in that. And I have some thoughts about that. But democratically speaking, who would like to listen to the answer of that question? And then you see hands raising up, 2 or 3, and the rest does not want. And then I say, okay, let's use the time together for other questions, but let's talk afterwards about this. If I have a fast answer, I might even answer in a fast way, but if it gets really technical, it's a problem. Yeah. Yeah. Microphone?
No, it's just to emphasize one thing that you said, that for instance about the multiverse, it is a metaphysic thing, and lots of these things are not scientific aspects per se, but are more philosophical or theological, and so they are not measured, cannot be measured, and to stress this point. Normally it helps me, and because and I think this is also important for the other people to listen and to understand. They are talking from which authority? Because lots of scientists say things with the authority about being scientists, good ones, really good ones, but they are not talking about science, but they are talking about other things that is not their, yeah.
That's another very good point. Not everything that a scientist says is what science actually says. That's another good quotation. Yeah, thank you for that. By the way, in this universe, we have gone over time, and dinner has started already in 4 minutes before. So I suggest that also in this universe, we probably go ahead towards dinner. Or is there anything else to say, Eva? No? Okay. So thank you for your attendance, and see you later.